All right, guys, so there's been a video that's kind of been making the waves on social media today, X in particular, as you do. And it's between, actually, yours truly, myself, and my good friend, Ian Wright. Well, hold on. You guys call him Ian, right? You guys call him Ian, right? I call him Righty, actually. You know, me and him, we're boys for a while now. He's Righty to me, man. Uncle Ian, that's what I call him. But all jokes aside, SDS, we're lucky, very fortunate to have the great man, Ian Wright, Premier League legend, English football legend, along on the panel like this week. And we finished off the episode by speaking about the best strikers in Prem history. And the way we kind of did it, right, was by picking out for each decade the best three of that pile. But then we got to the 2000s, right? And it got a little interesting. And this is kind of where the video comes into play. I'm going to play a segment of it for you guys right now. And first and foremost, there's a multitude of strikers on this list, right? And when I think about it, it's actually kind of funny because Van Persie ended up on this list. Even so, his best years were in the 2010s, but the majority of his career in the Premier League took place in the 2000s, but he got into the 2010 list. Aguero was brought up. Harry Kane was brought up. Luis Suarez was brought up. There were a few other ones, right? Jamie Vardy was on that list, Diego Costa, and so on and so forth. But really, the four that we were kind of debating here was Luis Suarez, Harry Kane, Sergio Aguero, and Robin Van Persie.
I think Van Persie.
So this is where I kind of came in, right? Because they kept pressing me. All three of them, by the way, just to give you some backstory here, immediately said Aguero, Suarez, and Kane. Fuad said it, Sharky said it, and Righty said it. Me, I said Van Persie has to be in my three. But I said, what's the criteria? Because you guys know me, when it's these lists, I don't want to just give a blind ranking, right? Like, you have to add context here. What's the criteria on what we're judging them on? Is it the best level that they hit, or is it their entire Premier League career? What are we judging it on? Because I think the different answers are the three different answers based on what criteria you give. So I kept asking, what is it on?
I think you can chat all of these.
You
guys.
want Van Persie in there instead of Suarez?
But the thing is, Suarez had 2 years in the Premier League, 2, 3. Like, how long was he really doing it for in the Prem?
So there you go. Suarez is the first name. I don't think Van Persie is a better player than Suarez. I don't think Van Persie ever hit a better peak than Suarez. Suarez, as I just said, is the best striker of that generation in my eyes, right? Shout out to Benzema, Lewandowski, Aguero, all these guys. I think Suarez is the best of his generation. Of this 2010s onwards gen, I haven't seen any striker with my eyes put together the best level Suarez did. So I have no problem saying that. But if we want to go on their entire Premier League career, all of a sudden it becomes a bit more difficult because although Suarez still did a lot of stuff in the Premier League, he was only really there for what? Half of 2010-11, half of 2010-11 to 2013-14. It's like 3.5 years. It's not the longest period in the Prem. So what's it on? That's kind of what I'm asking here.
With the Barca,
a couple years.
I think
you don't get there, but
Yeah, but that means you're getting.
Let me ask you this.
Is this a conversation on their entire body of work in the Premier League or just their quality? What is it on?
Well,
Because I think if it's on quality, Van Persie's in my top. If it's on quality, Van Persie's in my top 3 for sure.
but then you look at
At their best, who am I taking between him and Aguero? I'm taking Van Persie over Aguero.
you taking Van Persie.
At his very best.
Okay, so that's the statement that got a lot of people heated. But honestly, I'm gonna back myself. First of all, it's my take. Secondly, yeah, I'm gonna back myself here. First and foremost, I found a lot of people like saying on social media, and you can see the tweet online, right? They're saying, well, how can you argue this when you're with Ian Wright? Like, Ian Wright's a former Premier League striker. Yo, full respect to Ian Wright, man. He's one of the best to ever do it in this country. But are we not all allowed opinions? Is this not a game of opinions? Ian Wright didn't write no pun intended, he didn't write the book of football. He's not right about everything, or maybe in his eyes he's right, but I think I'm right as well too. So I'm gonna back myself, right? So I found that kind of funny, right? This is a debate environment, right? We're sitting down, and I'm honored to be sat next to such a great player and person as Ian Wright, but I'm coming here with my own opinions. I'm not gonna just like bow down and listen to everything he says like it's word of mouth, right? Or word of gospel. But I found it funny. That was the first thing I found funny. But yeah, my take was based on the best level they hit in the Premier League, I would take Van Persie over Aguero. I'll let you listen to a little more.
Very best. Obviously, their Premier League career, Aguero.
As a player,
at their very best, I'm taking Van Persie. Why? His very best. Why not?
Man's gone in on this, bro.
Why not?
I don't know.
United fans love Van Persie.
What could Van Persie not do?
Is
Young United.
Unbelievable.
Now we're not underrating Aguero.
No, he's unbelievable.
I didn't like that because I'm the one who comes onto this podcast and on your videos, right? Raving about Aguero. I actually, you know what's funny, right? let's actually talk about this. When it comes to Aguero and Van Persie, I think it's kind of funny, right? Because I view them very similarly. Obviously, Aguero's career was much longer in terms of the level he hit. Aguero is one of the most consistent goal scorers, consistent number 9s I've ever seen, right? Every single year, the guy's putting up numbers. Day in, day out, season in, season out. But I view Aguero and Van Persie a bit similarly, right? Because I think both of them don't get the flowers they deserve today, right? Van Persie still scored over 100 Premier League goals. He's still, I think, in the top 20 Premier League goal scorers ever. Aguero is in the top 10. I think he's the highest foreign goal scorer. Maybe Salah might have taken over him at this point. It's close. But I don't think either of them really get their dues like they deserve. I really don't. Aguero, bar Henry, I struggle to think of a better out-and-out number 9 over their entire Premier League career than Aguero, right? Shearer, of course, as well there too. But yeah, for me, that's like the big 3 right there. And I don't think he gets that due. I think oftentimes we hear about Kane, we hear about Haaland. I feel like some City fans were so quick after Haaland's first season to immediately say this is City's greatest striker. And I respect Haaland so much. I don't think the Prem has seen a goal scorer like him. But I think we forget about how good Aguero was. Similar to Van Persie, I feel like his prime, the 3 years he gave in the Premier League, is amongst the best I've ever seen from any striker, probably ever, to be honest, right? This is one of the best striker peaks I've ever seen, and I don't think it gets that due. So in that regard, they're quite similar. Neither of them really have a vintage Champions League caliber resume. None of them were ever disgustingly elite in Europe. That's a fact. Aguero of City never was really able to kind of bring his Premier League form, which was amongst the best in the world, to the European stage. And similar to Van Persie, even in that period, he never really took it to the Champions League with Man United or with Arsenal. And then at international level, both of them scored a lot of goals for their countries, right? Van Persie, I think, is still the top scorer in Dutch history if Depay hasn't taken him over yet. And Aguero is in the top 5, I think, for Argentina. But neither of them, in my opinion, for as long as I watched them for their countries, ever really kind of went to a tournament and made it their own. If anything, Aguero, I always felt, was in the shadow of Gonzalo Higuain. Despite maybe being a better center forward than him, I never thought he kind of could strike a great relationship with Messi because of how similar they were. And he always seemed to play second fiddle to Higuain. And Van Persie led the line a lot of years for the Dutch, but bar maybe 2014, which funnily enough, he was kind of already on the decline for, never really, again, lit up a tournament. 2012, he went into such a big name. Holland were one of the favorites. The Netherlands were one of the favorites. And he scored a great goal, I think it was against Germany. But again, kind of flattered to deceive. So I look at Van Persie and Aguero quite similarly in that regard. Now, they're very different players in the way they go about their business. But yeah, I find them both very, very underrated. But let's actually properly break down Van Persie and Aguero. Again, I concede the point. Entire body of work in the Premier League, Aguero sweeps, right? He's too consistent. Honestly, Aguero, man, he was injured a lot, which I think also really hurts his reputation these days because he was never finishing 38-game seasons. His numbers, therefore, because of that, were hampered because he wasn't playing as many games as other great center forwards. So it's hard to hit 30 goals when you're not playing 38 games. But every year, the guy's a walking 20 goals in the league. It feels like every single year, Aguero is in amongst the top 3 goal scorers in the Prem, despite playing a lot less games and minutes than them. But it's also kind of reflected in the fact that isn't Aguero the highest goal scorer in terms of minutes per goal? His minutes per goal ratio in Premier League history, I believe, is the best for a certain threshold of minutes. Obviously, I think Jesus probably has a ton in that regard, Solskjaer. But in terms of a certain threshold, I don't know, however minutes it has to register when you talk about the best, Aguero is clear of everyone because despite only playing 30 to 31 games a season on average, he's still giving you 20 pieces every single year. But because of that, I think it makes it very difficult to kind of pinpoint a prime of Aguero's career, like a peak. Because it's so much this, there's not really like ups, and therefore there's not really a down. It's just kind of straight like this, which makes it difficult to kind of pinpoint a peak. He never really declined, barred the end of his career when he was about to retire, but he never really kind of like hit a level where you're like, oh my goodness, Aguero was just taking over, because he was just always at this level. Whereas Van Persie is really the definition of a late bloomer. This guy came to the Premier League very, very young, joined Arsenal from Feyenoord, and everybody regarded Van Persie as like the heir to Bergkamp, obviously because he's Dutch, but even in the style that he did his game, right? He's very technically gifted, Van Persie. Everybody knew that. In fact, he played as a number 10, he played as a second striker, he played as a wing way before he led the line for Arsenal. And it's because the guy was technically brilliant. Some of the goals, some of the skills Van Persie showcased in his early years at Arsenal, the most memorable one for Arsenal has to be that volley against Charlton. It was a ridiculous act of agility, balance, contorting your body, and the way Van Persie could volley a ball. Oh my goodness. I struggle to think of probably any center forward that could volley a ball in this era like Van Persie. He could just, the way he would just like kind of, it was like an art. Honestly, watching Van Persie volley a ball was an art. But the flicks, the tricks, the passing, he was such a gifted player. The problem with Van Persie is the injuries. The injuries always kind of hurt whatever momentum he was building at Arsenal. So everybody knew Arsenal had a really talented player in him, but while Fabregas was able to showcase it week in, week out from the age of 16 onwards, Van Persie, it almost felt like a project that Arsenal kind of had in their back locker, but they were never able to fully kind of just unleash him. Right? Adebayor in that period led the line for Arsenal. Eduardo had a good period before that brutal knee injury that changed everything. Even Nicholas Bentner was leading the line at times for Arsenal because Van Persie just simply could not get himself on the pitch enough. So I guess in that way as well too, similar to Aguero, but Aguero, I have to be honest, right? From the minute one of Aguero, even at Atletico, everybody knew this guy was a prodigy, man. Independiente, come on, Aguero, even the godson of Maradona. From day one, everybody knew this guy was a phenom, and he just every season 20 goals. But Van Persie, it took a lot longer. But something clicked in 2010-11. Now, it's interesting actually. 2010-11, the Premier League Golden Boot was shared between Berbatov and Carlos Tevez. They both scored 20 goals. Berbatov, though, most of his goals came in clumps. I love Berbatov, right? I love him, but his goals came in clumps. 5 against Blackburn, 2 against Blackpool, 3 against Liverpool. He didn't have like goals from match day 1 to match day 38 evenly spread out. He was really scoring in bunches, and towards the end of the season, he went on a crazy cold patch, and he shared it with Carlos Tevez, who had an amazing season for City. In third place was Robin Van Persie with 18 goals. But here's the kicker, right? By January 1st, Robin Van Persie had scored 0 goals in the Premier League. It's because he had only started 1 game in the Prem up to that point. He'd missed the entirety, he basically was injured the entirety of the first half of the season, right? He only started 1 game before the 1st of January. So 2010-11, by January, he has 0 league goals. He scored 18 goals in 18 starts for the rest of the league season. So, right, you like the January 1st, that's basically the halfway point of the season, right? So you've played 19 games at that point. 18 games, half the season later, he was effectively scoring a goal a game. Out of nowhere, Van Persie just, the player everybody knew existed in Van Persie, just exploded overnight. It was crazy to see. Every single game, it felt like this guy was scoring. It was ridiculous. And ultimately, he fell short to Berbatov and Tevez. But those guys basically played 35, 36 game seasons. This guy started 19 games in the Premier League and scored 18 league goals. From there, we all had to take a step back and say, okay, Van Persie might have finally arrived. But we weren't done yet, because then the 2011-12 season happened. And in that summer, Arsenal lost Cesc Fabregas to Barcelona, and they lost Samir Nasri to Manchester City. All of a sudden, Arsenal, who were basically a consistent top 4 threat every single year, they were guaranteed to make the top 4, had to kind of look over their shoulder. What the hell is happening? Like, City have emerged now. Spurs are starting to slowly build ahead of steam. They had just made the Champions League the season before. Like, obviously, Liverpool were trying to get back in there. Chelsea, Newcastle, they were really kind of building up as well too. Man United, of course. All of a sudden, Arsenal's place in the top 4 was under threat. And after 5 games, when Arsenal got demolished 8-2 by Man United, major question marks were starting to be asked. All of a sudden, Robin Van Persie, taking over the captaincy from Fabregas, who had just left, leads Arsenal. And when I say leads is even an understatement. This guy single-handedly carried Arsenal to the top 4 that year. Single-handedly carried Arsenal to the top 4 that year. He won PFA Player of the Season. He was the best player in the league. He won Golden Boot. I believe he scored 30 goals that season. And carrying on from his 2011 calendar year, the second half of the 2010-11 season, he would go nuclear the rest of 2011. So much so that, guys, he set the record for the most goals in a calendar year over 38-game Premier League season that year with 35, beating Thierry Henry. He fell short only of Alan Shearer, who had the record for a calendar year goals over 42 games. He scored 36. Van Persie, in the year 2011, scored the most goals ever in a Premier League season still viewed as a 38-game season. Only Harry Kane, all those years later, would break that record, scoring 39 himself. But that's what we were talking about with Van Persie. This guy was the best goal scorer in the league, and damn it, he was the best player in the league as well too. Voted for by the players, by the fans. It was obvious, bro. He carried the Arsenal team. They were sorry as hell. Everybody knew it. Look at the supporting cast that he had to that. He carried them to that top 4. and the goals he scored amongst the way. The volley against Everton was just ridiculous, bro. Obviously, we'll talk about the one he scored for Man United a year later, but that volley right there was crazy. It was crazy. This isn't all in the 2011-12 season. But the thing with Van Persie, right? More so than just his goals, because when we're looking back at players' peaks, I think it's always really important that you watch these players because you're just looking at numbers versus numbers if you didn't. First and foremost, Van Persie's numbers were elite in this period. But more so than just his numbers, you had to watch the guy play. And it's why I wish for YouTube copyright didn't exist. I could just show you it. Van Persie was everything for that Arsenal team. He was the best goal scorer in the league. But guys, this guy was dropping deep. He was facilitating. He was playmaking. He was feeding others through. He was crossing. He was taking the corners. He was doing everything for this Arsenal team. And that is the beauty of Van Persie. And it's why I'm such a big fan of him. Not only in this peak of his was he an amazing goal scorer, a goal scoring phenomenon, showed by the numbers and the records he set, but he was an unbelievable footballer as well too. He was basically the complete attacker at times for Arsenal. And that's why I feel like when we look at him, yeah, you can look at the numbers, which were great in its own regard, but you had to watch Van Persie play. The guy was so technically good and such an intelligent player as well too, because Van Persie, the thing with him, he was never the quickest. He was never lightning fast, especially towards the end. But his reading of the game and his positioning was on a different level, bro. It was on a different level. Like the showcase of finishing he had was crazy. But the runs he would make as well too. The guy was a freak. But here's the thing, right? This same season, Aguero has showed up to Manchester City, and he's kind of been the last piece of the puzzle in terms of turning City from noisy neighbors into title winners. He scored a load of goals. I mean, from the minute one against Swansea, when he came on and scored 2 goals off the bench, we knew this guy was a problem. And he, alongside others, helped City win their first league title in, 48 years or something like that. Obviously capped off by the most iconic moment in Premier League history, that last-minute winner. But guys, people are bringing this up in dispute to my argument. Oh, Aguero, that season he had to win City the league. He was amazing that season. Aguero wasn't even better than Van Persie in that year. Van Persie was the best player in the league. So I don't understand that. Going into the next season, Van Persie decides to leave Arsenal for whatever reason, right? We've heard from both sides of the story. Arsenal fans will say he just wanted a new challenge. Van Persie has claimed Arsenal didn't want to give him the contract. For one reason or another, he decides to leave Arsenal. Now, it's funny, actually. Man City and Man United wanted him alongside Juventus. Man City wanted to add him to their crazy team already. Imagine Van Persie and Aguero. We're debating them right now. Imagine they had played together. There's a real possibility. And Man United wanted him as well, too. A Man United team who had lost the title the season before to City on goal difference. But everybody kind of looked at that United team and said, on quality, guys, City's a much better team. Yes, Ferguson is the equalizer, and we have Rooney, of course, too. And Nani's a decent player as well, Vidic. But this City team, first of all, is younger than us, and they have more quality. Aguero, Silva, Yaya Toure, Nasri, Vincent Kompany. The team was a joke, bro. It was a joke. And I remember that season, right? We choked the league. We should have won the league in 2011-12. We were up 9 points, I think, with like 6 games left or something like that. Or 12 points with like 6 games left. It was crazy. But when you look at that season, a lot of it was experience kind of leading us to the finish line. And City, a lot of immaturity. But ultimately, we fumbled and they took advantage of it. But player for player, City were the better team. Man United was aging. And the players that they were bringing in to replace those aging players were like the likes of Cleverley, Anderson, Smalling, Evans. Again, no disrespect. Raphael, no disrespect to any of these guys. Welbeck. I like all of them, right? They won a league title for us. But look at the names I'm describing compared to the players that City had. It's a mismatch on quality. So if we had kind of gone into that 12, 13 season with the same squad, City probably beat us again, man. Probably by more this time. But Van Persie made the decision to join Man United. Whether it was a conversation with Sir Alex, whether it was the little boy in his heart screaming for Man United, as he claims, he decided to join United. So ultimately here, we're looking at Aguero versus Van Persie. And obviously Aguero's not at his best yet. He's very good, but he's not at his best yet. I think that comes a few years later. But Robin Van Persie takes the form that he showed at Arsenal, where he was the best striker, the best player in the league, and takes it to Man United, where he puts together one of the biggest single man carry jobs from an attacking point of view I think the Premier League has ever seen. Van Persie's 2012-2013 season is rivaled by very few players when it comes to individual one-man carry job to a Premier League title. We talked about this a few weeks ago, actually, right? When Salah won the league with Liverpool. And I came out and said, I think it's the biggest one-man carry job I've seen in Prem history from an attacking point of view. Because and this is carry jobs that led to the league title. I know there's ones that didn't, but Salah this past season carried Liverpool from a goal scoring point of view and from a creative point of view. He was the attack. You don't always get that. A lot of times the best teams win because it's like goals are shared everywhere, right? It's a great team. And Liverpool are a good team. But from an attacking point of view, it was Salah. Let's be real. It was showcased by the fact that when Salah eventually slowed down, no one else could carry the load. In terms of other carried jobs that led to a title from a goal scoring point of view, I'm sorry, man. There's not many that come to mind bar Van Persie. Because you can look at it, right? Henry had great goal scoring seasons for Arsenal. You're still looking at Pires. You're looking at Youngberg. You're looking at an Arsenal team that are scoring goals from all areas, man. You're looking at it from everywhere. Chelsea on 9-10. Drogba scored 29 goals. Lampard chipped in with what, 22? Maluda, Anelka, Ronaldo. He still had Rooney. He still had Tevez. Van Persie, man. If I look at that Man United team, yeah, he had Rooney, Chicharito, and Welbeck. It was a great four to have. Chicharito's coming off the bench. Welbeck I think Welbeck scored 1 goal in the Prem that year. 1 goal. I think he scored 1 goal in the Prem against Stoke. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he scored 1 goal. And Rooney chipped in, I think, with 11. But Rooney was in and out of the team as well, too. He damn near left at the end of the season, man. Him and Ferguson completely fell out. RVP carried this Man United attack. And it felt that way as well, too. Every single week from the first match, or from the second match day on, from Fulham's second match day, every week it felt like Robin Van Persie was deciding games for Man United. Whether it was the hat-trick against Southampton, whether it was the goal against Fulham on his first start at Old Trafford, whether it was the hat-trick against Aston Villa to seal the league for United, whether it was the last-minute free kick winner against Man City at the Etihad, whether it was goals against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Stamford Bridge, which was a haunting for us for years. We couldn't win at Stamford Bridge. Van Persie won us that game. Whether it was Arsenal the first time around, whether it was Arsenal the second time around when they gave us a guard of honor, whether it was Liverpool at Anfield, whether it was... honestly, guys, every single big game for Man United that season, Robin Van Persie was deciding it for us. He ends the season with 26 goals, wins the Golden Boot, and it's actually crazy, right? He scores 26 goals. And I want to shout out Suarez as well, too, because that season Suarez came second by a few goals off, but he only played 33 games because I think he missed the last 5 due to suspension for biting Ivanovic. Probably would have won it himself. But Van Persie won it with 26. 26 goals is a lot of... That's a lot of goals. Guys, he won 11 games without a goal at one point for Man United. Like, Van Persie did hit a rut for Man United by the time the league was already over because he had won it for us. But he went 11 games without scoring a goal and still won the Golden Boot. And again, this is on top of, I think he almost hit double-digit assists that season. He's taking corners for us. He's practically playmaking for us as well, too. His hold-up play is elite. His passing is elite. I just really struggled to think with Van Persie at that point. Between 2011 to, I would say, 2013. He did okay the next season, but it wasn't the same Van Persie. From like 2010-11 to 2013, what couldn't Van Persie do? He was one of the best goal scorers in Europe. He's one of the best playmakers at striker in Europe. He's just a damn good footballer, period. He's clutch. His goals are directly leading to titles. What couldn't the guy do? In fact, when I look in Europe at the time, I think Radamel Falcao was really, really good at that point. And he was rivaling Messi and Ronaldo for Golden Boot in Spain himself. Falcao was unbelievable. But Falcao wasn't as good a footballer as Van Persie was. He wasn't. Right? It's not like he was doing it in the Champions League either. He was really killing it in the Europa League, but it's not like he was lighting up the Champions League. He was barely even playing in it. Falcao was considered the best striker probably in the world at that point. But I'm sorry, when I look at what him and Van Persie were doing, the numbers weren't that far off. They were pretty similar. In that period between 2011 and 2013, his numbers were very similar. And Van Persie was probably a more gifted footballer than Falcao. He's probably offering more to his team than Falcao was outside of the goals. You guys are going to call me crazy. I think between 2011 and 2013, you could have made the argument Van Persie was the best center forward in Europe at that point. Outside of Ronaldo and Messi are not playing center forward at that point. Out and out number 9s. I think you could have made the argument Van Persie was the best. So when I look at him and Aguero, I don't think I can look at an Aguero season where I thought to myself, this is the best center forward in Europe. And sure, you can argue his competition when he was kind of hitting his pomp. Suarez had moved to Barca. Lewandowski was ridiculous at that point as well, too. Benzema a little later on, right? That's when he really kind of hit his pomp. You had Higuain. You had a lot of great goal scorers. Cavani, Zlatan. I don't think you could ever really say at any point in Aguero's career, he was the outright best. And again, I think it's hampered by the fact that he was injured all the time, right? So he never really got to showcase it over 38 games. He never got to hit 30 goals a season because of his injuries. But I never also looked at myself and thought, yeah, Aguero is better than all of these guys. He was an amazing center forward. And again, did it for a much longer time. He maintained his level a much longer time than Van Persie. But I think I'm willing to make the argument that Aguero's best level was here. And that period reached this long, right? It reached this long at this level. I think Van Persie hit this level for this long. So now the conversation is really, are you valuing a longer period at a lower level or a shorter period at a higher level? That's up for you guys to decide. But when the conversation that I'm leading here is about who was better at their very best, at their peak, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm blasphemous to say Van Persie. Now, if you think Aguero was, by all means, Aguero hit a very high level, I would say 2013-14 and 2014-15. I think Aguero, those 2 seasons, was ridiculous. He was scary. But I don't think it's night and day to say he's much better than Van Persie, if that. For me, I actually think Van Persie, his best peak was better than Aguero's. Even when you compare them player for player, obviously they're quite different, right? Aguero is more of like he's almost like a tank at times, right? He's like a little chihuahua. He puts his head down. He's able to, his balance and gravity is crazy. When he kind of puts his head down and starts running through players, it's damn near impossible to stop. I mean, the goal that really stands out is that goal against Man United in 2012-13. We won the league, but he scored the winner at Old Trafford. And he just puts his head down and skips past 1, 2, 3, and then blasts it near post. His trademark finish, right? That is something Van Persie could never do. Aguero dribbling, he's incredible, man. In fact, I always used to say Messi is the most similar player to Maradona in terms of everything, right? But in terms of like the bulldozer approach of put your head down and just run through players, I actually felt Aguero was very similar to Maradona in that regard. So that's something Van Persie doesn't have, right? And I would say in terms of clinicality, who's the more clinical finisher? Van Persie was an amazing finisher. But I do think Aguero was the better finisher. I think you could make the argument Aguero is the best finisher in Premier League history. Any angle, left foot, right foot, one-on-one, it never felt like Aguero missed. I think he's the most clinical finisher in Premier League history. That's not to say Van Persie wasn't clinical, and that doesn't mean Van Persie wasn't a great finisher. Van Persie could also score from damn near any angle. At one point before Harry Kane broke it, Van Persie had the most weak foot goals in Premier League history. Van Persie was good in the air as well too. But I would give the edge, goal scoring wise in general, to Aguero. But I think then when you look at outside of the box, I do think I give Van Persie the edge there. I do think I do. I think Van Persie, in terms of getting players into play, his link up, his hold up, I do think I give that to him. Close control, probably similar. Aguero was ridiculously good with the ball close to his feet and almost never seemed like he lost it. And I think playmaking, I just think getting others into play and feeding guys through and crossing, I do give that to Van Persie. And you could argue, does that matter more than goal scoring if you're a striker? Maybe not. But I think when you're talking about the peak and when the numbers are as similar as they were between Van Persie and Aguero, that's where you have to kind of look at other things. So me personally, I stand by Van Persie. And on top of that, the fact that he was also winning when he finally got the opportunity to join a big club. No disrespect to Arsenal, but at that point, Arsenal were not competing for trophies. When he came to United and was the difference maker in second to first, I think you got to respect Van Persie, man. I think people are looking at that season and forgetting about it, right? Because he didn't break a goal scoring record that year. Look, it's not a great Man United team anyways, but I think it makes his accomplishment even better. For me, that 2012-13 Van Persie season is one of the greatest individual seasons by a player ever. Ever. Flat out. You can disagree if you like, but I find it difficult to see how, right? I have so much respect for so many great seasons. Suarez 13-14. De Bruyne had an amazing season where he didn't win the league. But for a player to win the league for his team, like you can honestly look at Van Persie that season and say, he won Man United the league. You can't sniff at that, man. That's crazy. So that's really it. Let me play the end of the video. I actually think I managed to convince Righty a little. Maybe he just wanted the conversation to end. Who knows? But this is the end of the video.
It's very best.
Bro.
Why not?
Man's gone in on this, bro.
Why not?
I don't know.
United fans love Van Persie.
What could Van
Do
Persie
they?
not- what could Van Persie not do?
Is,
Young United.
Unbelievable.
now we're not underrating Aguero.
No, he's unbelievable.
No.
Of course. But I'm saying at their very best. That's what I'm saying. Body of work. Aguero every day of the week.
So what about the video? I need to
Aguero is very best.
It got heated up. It got heated. I think Righty was surprised. Because he thought we were just going to come in, just chat normally. Come on, man. We got to bring some fire to these, man. And I think Righty appreciated that, man.
Biggest commodity in
Brother,
football.
Van
if it's
Persie
not
was scoring
goals.
30 goals a season in this period. He
goals.
was
Yeah,
but so was Aguero.
He was scoring 30 goals in this period.
But
Aguero never had a season where he
Aguero,
scored 30.
he never finished the whole season, for example. That's Nicola Van Persie.
Bro, okay, I'm taking the piss here. It's not Aguero's fault that he's always getting in. Well, no, it's not his fault he's always getting injured. Here, you know when you're trying to win an argument, I'll hold my hands up.
The small window.
Bro,
I love
you know what?
Persie, apart from that small window.
No, we're talking about the peak. I'm saying body work. You take it
Aguero
body
is
work.
best.
You take it.
Yeah, Aguero is best. I think even in general, as a striker, he had everything. And I love Van Persie. Van Persie was one of my favorite players.
You know something?
Aguero can score from anywhere, any angle,
Of
anytime.
course. Well, Van Persie
Any
couldn't
place.
do that as well too.
Who's the
Crystal
free then?
Follies.
Well, who's the
Of course
free?
he
Because
could, bro.
It was
Come on.
Euro 2008.
Huh?
World Cup 2010.
You see, Fuad, I clocked, man. When he doesn't like a player, it always has deeper meaning. The reason he's dissing Van Persie now is because of Dutch bias. Because he didn't do it for the Dutch, like I said. But I'm sorry, if you're talking international, Aguero's not the guy to bring to the table because I don't think internationally he ever kind of showed his true level.
Oh, I do Aguero International. Don't talk to me about Aguero International.
For me, Kane, Aguero, and
Don't
Suarez.
talk to me about Aguero International. That person.
Bro, you know something?
I forget.
I'm probably gonna go with Kane, Aguero, and Suarez.
Same.
That's fair. Van Persie gets in my top 3.
Yeah, but that's your top 3.
that's your top three.
That's your
This is
top
the
three.
Ian Wright episode.
No, man, you can have yours.
Give us the
No.
three names. Give us the three names.
What?
Who's the three?
Harry Kane.
On ability or on body of work?
We're going on the top 3.
Right.
Not 2000s. Not
Ready. What's your criteria? Give me a criteria. I'll give you a top 3.
Was that 90s?
Body of work, career, or
I got a trademark body of work at this point, man. I got to trade in football terms. I got a trademark body of work. That's one of my catchphrases, bro. That's one of my things. I'm trademarking this shit, man.
Just
Ask
best
us
level.
within
Best
90s
level.
and 2000s, by the way.
Best
Didn't
level.
ask us within 90s.
No.
Because I didn't disagree. I didn't disagree.
No,
I
you didn't
like
disagree.
this.
No. You know something?
Shoehorn your guy in, so you
He has to be there, bro. He won us the league, bro.
Do you know what it is? I get it. Van
Listen,
Persie
you feel me
was
here,
the
bro.
first one. Do you know what it is? Van Persie is the first player he fell in love with. I get it.
No, it's not the first.
know
Not
something?
even. But I will say this about Van Persie, right? He's not the first player I fell in love with. I watched football long before Van Persie came to Man United. But I've never seen a player at Man United. Maybe, honestly, okay. I didn't see Rooney when he first came to the club. When I started watching United, he was already there. In my time of watching Man United, of them signing players, so Ronaldo was at the club when I started supporting. Rooney was already there. In my time of watching Man United players, like sign players and like seeing how fans receive them, maybe only Bruno is the only other player that I've seen Man United sign a player and almost from day one, the entire fan base just like fell in love with them. But with Van Persie, what was so crazy is he came from Arsenal. I'll never forget when we found out Van Persie was coming to Man United. My dad was actually very skeptical. And I asked him why. Like, he wasn't excited about the move. He's like, Van Persie, man, he's just such an Arsenal guy. Like, he's an Arsenal player. I don't see him and see Man United. I don't know how other fans felt about that, but that was I remember vividly my dad saying, Van Persie, he's not a Man United guy. He's an Arsenal guy. I don't see him as a Man United player. Bro, I promise you, from the first game against Fulham, his tune changed. And I feel like the entire fan base just fell in love. Like, he took to us so quickly, and we took to him so quickly. Only Bruno, I can really say, in my time of watching Man United, like has a fan base just fell in love like that. That's the only one I can think of.
Can I be totally honest? I love this passion for him, bro. This is what I love.
Football.
That's it. That's what it does, man. You know what I mean? But
There
like,
you go, man.
and I love him as well. You know what I mean? Because
you
you can
don't love
no.
him because he's
No.
stung you a little.
I tell you, no. Of course, he broke our heart because we saw Robin van Persie leave us, and this is why it still rankles with Arsenal. We saw him leave us and win the league for United, almost single-handedly. I think that's a 2013 season, right?
Yeah.
Arguably one of the worst Man United sides that's won the league, right?
Terrible.
So you look at it from an Arsenal point of view, and I don't have nothing against him, but to see him leave and see us struggle for so many years, still trying to win it, and like we couldn't have been a million miles away. Obviously,
It brings me so much joy hearing this. This is why I think I love Van Persie as well too. Because, bro, my best friend back in the day was an Arsenal fan. I had another friend who was an Arsenal. Like, I knew Arsenal fans back then. Obviously, I'm not living in London, but I knew Arsenal fans. Bro, the way this killed them. Because he was like their last hope. Fabregas left, Nasri, he was the last one. And we took him and he wanted us to, oh my, it brings me so much joy hearing Reddy talk like this.
it comes back down to, did we have the right people around a player that can do that?
No, we
because
didn't.
we showed
That's why
he
he
showed
left,
at Man
though.
United he could do it.
But
So
that's why he left. Because
That's
he felt
exactly
we
why he
didn't,
left.
And he was at an age where he was 29, where he couldn't wait another 5
He
6
couldn't
years.
wait.
But then it's weird because you guys didn't really, because you didn't have a great squad either.
But this is what I'm trying to
that's-
tell you. It's not like he was at City doing all this. He was playing with Cleverly and Anderson.
I
bro.
hear you. And you know
No
what?
disrespect, by the
You
way.
know what, Sharks? You know what, Sharks? These arguments starting to feed into me.
Hey! Yo, I can debate with the best of them, chat. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. People are telling me, oh, why are you trying to debate with Ian Wright? It's conversation, man. This is what football is all about. Shay, I can tell my kids one day I managed to sway Ian Wright's opinion on a footballing matter. My job here is done, man.
I'm not changing my.
I'm not, listen, I tell you why it's feeding into me. Because, no, bro. The reason why it's feeding in is because now I'm starting to look back at Arsenal and
Remember,
saying exactly what I'm saying about Harry Kane.
Yeah.
If we get the right people around him, he doesn't leave. He's won the title for United side.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst Man United sides that's won the league. And so now I'm thinking to myself, bro. But I can't change Suarez.
I'm not changing my. What's your
Suarez
three?
has to be there for
Same.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's
what's
a
your
good
three?
argument you put up there.
Can we get a final three from me so we can move on to the last category?
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna do it on. For me,
How
I'm
do you
going
want to do
Aguero, Suarez, Van Persie. That's
Okay.
See, that's so funny. I actually put Aguero in my best three in terms of best level, by the way, huh? It's Kane I left out, but that's for another day. That's for another day.
No, man,
No
that's
Kane.
all right. That's
No
nothing
Kane.
wrong with that.
those three.
Yeah, Suarez, Aguero, Van Persie, man. That's my 3. But guys, at the end of the day, right? This is all just opinion. If football is a game of opinion, I feel like the way, like, if you guys noticed, I never dissed Aguero in this video or in this video, and I never dissed Suarez. Guys, these are amongst the best players I've ever seen in my life, right? When you're talking about this kind of stuff, I do feel like when you're talking about the best level, it is kind of just it's so thin, the margins between these kinds of players when you're talking about their best level. So to act like one of them was a scrub, like I saw some people on social, and I know it's social media, right? Take with a grain of salt, but I saw some Van Persie, he was just a moments player. He's so overrated. Like, come on, guys. Van Persie was ridiculous when he was at his best, but so was Aguero. So it's really just a game of opinions, and maybe I happen to be in the minority here, but I stand by my opinion. Let me know what you guys think of yourselves, right? Maybe everything I said went out one ear out the other. You still believe Aguero's better. Did I manage to sway your opinion a little more? Or are you team RVP till the death anyways? Let me know what you guys think. Check out the SDS episode between myself, Sharks, Fuad, and Ian Wright. I'm going to link the video in the description down below. Go show us some love, man. And yeah, this is just a kind of different video, man. It's Thursday night. It's been making a storm, and I thought, let me give my 2 cents. Like, share, subscribe, guys. We're trying to get to 80K. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.